Hey everyone, welcome back to the February edition of the podcast, Think Global, where we like to say the world is our home, where strangers become friends and friends become family. John, we're back. It's February. How are you doing?
I'm doing quite well.
You are?
Yeah, I am. How are you?
I'm doing well, but we both just got back from an international trip and we're fighting jet lag.
That doesn't mean I'm not doing well.
Okay.
I'm enduring through the jet lag.
I love that. Yeah, we have to endure. We have to push through it and get where we need to be back in a balanced rhythm.
Yeah, we just got back from Thailand.
Yep.
That was a lot of fun. I was just sharing with somebody this morning that one of the side perks was shorts and flip-flops.
Yes.
For a week.
Yeah, I mean, here we are in Colorado. Yeah. It's winter. There's nothing quite like getting there. Not only shorts and flip-flops and T-shirts, but mango smoothies.
Mango smoothies.
Come on. I mean, everybody out there who's listening can actually be jealous about that.
They should be.
Yeah, mango smoothies, passion fruit smoothies, coconut juice. I mean, it was a great time.
It was a lot of fun. But it's good to be back. Good to be there.
Yes.
We were there with a number of colleagues and friends.
Yes.
And but now really good to be back
Yeah.
as well. But we're going to talk a bit about what we talked to those friends and colleagues about
That's right.
on that side of the ocean.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about that a bit on today's podcast. So the theme is, I alluded to it a moment ago.
You did.
Just a little play on words there or in jest. But endurance is our theme. And that's what we talked a lot about because these friends, these colleagues, they live cross-culturally. We visited for 10 days.
Right.
Visited them, chatted with them, spent time with them, but they live in these contexts, many of them all over Asia.
Yeah.
And so endurance is a real theme for their lives.
Right.
And so that was our theme of being there.
Yeah. And I love the theme of endurance. Like, most of us we just plugging through life, doing our thing, and we never think about the subject of endurance. Like, what does it mean to endure?
Yeah.
I love that subject because, I mean, that's really the story of life, endurance.
Yeah.
And it really, I think, just to take to pause and take a moment to look at the subject of endurance is good for all of us, whether it comes to enduring hardships, enduring in relationships, enduring through like just challenging times, enduring at a job, a place of occupation, and how to endure well. So, it's inspirational, and I love it.
Yeah, I think, people have made quitting too easy, too convenient, or they just naturally run from any level of discomfort.
That's right.
So we're going to look at a couple different things today on this topic of endurance. One, I'm really interested to hear you talk about because one of the things that has inspired you lately is this book that you read called Endurance.
Yeah. Give
us kind of the snapshot of what that book was about and your thoughts. I mean, we'll go through it, but what's the book all about?
Yeah, actually, if people love a good long read, but a read that in detail just talks about like hardship and challenge in a very different setting, in a very different time frame. The book Endurance, and it's a story of Ernest Shackleton. That's worth a read. And I was very inspired by it. So here's the overview of it. Ernest Shackleton, a total of 28 men, a crew members on a boat called Endurance. Set sail from England, and the objective was to be the first crew of individuals to do a crossing over the Antarctic continent. Now, this obviously it's been a long time ago. They set sail in 1914. And I've jotted down some highlights from that. So August 1, 1914, they set sail. And they became shipwrecked in the ice floes of Antarctica. And they were stranded for 18 long months. They had no contact with land. Like, they actually didn't put their feet on land for 497 days.
Wow.
Like, that's a long long time.
I thought 10 hours on a plane was a long time.
Yeah, that is a long time for us, right? But
I was ready to put my feet on land after 10 hours on
I agree.
United Airlines.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Once we landed. But now imagine, you would go for a little boat ride and you get off, you feel a little woozy, right? Like the equilibrium is a little bit off. But these guys, they didn't touch land for 497 days. They lost contact with the outside world for 18 months.
Wow.
And
they didn't have iPhones?
Not in 1914, they didn't.
Wow.
But here is a group of individuals stranded for 1.5 years. And it was all about survival, endurance. Like, one of the things that Ernest Shackleton said was, "I'll bring you back alive." That was his commitment to his crew. And there was one part of the book that was just crazy. To go from this land or this mass of ice to an island as a part of the process of rescue and surviving, they did an 800-mile voyage across the waters of Antarctica, and they did it in 2 lifeboats, both of them about 20 feet long. Now imagine that. Like, the storms there are some of the worst in the world. The seas are some of the worst in the world. And somehow, these guys, they survived. Along the journey, they ran out of food. Starvation was real. They ended up on the edge of a polar ice mass, and on the edge, they could find penguins to eat. They could find seals to eat, but that became their main source of food. Like, these guys, like, one guy frostbite, so a foot is amputated. And imagine, like, part of what was fascinating about this was, like, what do you talk about with the same group of guys for 1.5 years? Like, you run out of stories. You've told your whole life story 10 times. They've told theirs 10 times, and then you sit in silence. And so just the monotony of the silence. And imagine, too, some of the days, as far as sunlight, only lasted just moments. Gosh. And so long periods of darkness, long periods of sunlight at the other side of the season. Anyway, I was just inspired. Like, one of the things I was reminded of, John, and that was that being made in the image of God, like, there is a resilience built into us, the drive to endure, the drive to persevere. But based on a book we've read and talked about earlier, The Comfort Crisis, we are just given to those things that are comfortable.
Anyway. We did a whole episode on the comfort crisis. You can go back and listen to that whole episode if you want, but these kind of go hand in hand of, like, our pursuit of comfort is often counterproductive to the idea of endurance.
Right.
Does that make sense? Like, if you're just all about give me the most comfortable thing ever, you're not going to endure hardship.
Right.
If those guys on the boat endurance, when they shipwrecked in Antarctica, were all about the comforts of the world, they wouldn't have lasted 3 days.
That's right.
Let alone
however
many it was.
No survival.
497 or whatever it was. Like, I mean, just no way. So I love some of these quotes. Like this one I particularly like. Comfort is a temporary refuge, whereas discomfort fuels personal growth and transformation.
Right.
And I was actually, knowing we were going to record this podcast today, I was thinking about this driving in today of somewhere in our culture in recent years, we are chasing after comfort.
Right.
But it's simply a temporary refuge.
Right.
Like, for every discomfort of, well, I'm feeling down today, or I'm feeling anxious about this, we run to a doctor to give us pills.
That's right.
To get through that.
Right.
Right. And whereas just push through the discomfort,
right.
because that's what fuels growth and transformation. Right. Nobody wants to be uncomfortable anymore.
Right.
I was actually talking to a friend the other day about this trip to Thailand. He was asking me how it was, and you go there often. I said, yeah, I go there often, and talk about the culture and the language and the food and all that. And he said something to the effect of, I just couldn't do it. That makes me so uncomfortable.
Wow.
To think about people not know if they'll understand me, or if I'll understand them, or can I order the food, or will I like the food? That just makes me uncomfortable.
Right.
That actually is what pushes me into those experiences.
Right.
I got another quick story from Bangkok. I got in a taxi with a friend of ours that was there with us, and we were going somewhere to eat, and I had the GPS on my phone, and we're trying to communicate with the taxi driver, and it's not like an Uber where you just get in and they take you to wherever the app says to go. I'm trying to show him the address on my phone, and he's trying to squint and read it, and then I press the go button, and he actually ends up taking my phone from me and putting it in his cell phone holder on his phone. He just follows my GPS on my phone in the holder. Anyway, this friend of ours looks at me from the passenger side or from the other side of the back seat. He goes, "Isn't this awesome? It's like a video game. So you don't know if you're actually going to get where you're going or not." That's kind of how it feels sometimes. But you and I love that.
Oh, yeah.
Where other people would say, that's so uncomfortable.
Right, that's right.
Anyway.
Yeah, no, and actually as you're talking, let's just be honest. When we are uncomfortable, we have uncomfortable in any way, like whether it be uncomfortable in a relationship or uncomfortable because of, physical challenges or uncomfortable because the job is not what we dreamed it would be.
Yeah.
We have developed escape mechanisms to handle that. And we're all guilty of it. Like one of the things that it's almost like a sedative that takes away some of the pain of life is social media.
Right.
Which sometimes just adds more.
Right.
Because then we're trapped in envy about everybody else's life that looks so good in social media. Or we turn on a TV. Or we sleep way too much, just trying to avoid challenges. And that's what one of the quotes that comes from the comfort crisis was this, that comfort is not a substitute for true contentment and fulfillment.
Yeah.
And actually, that's what we live our lives for, to be comfortable. We spend our money to be comfortable. Our pursuits are all about comfort. And comfort is not what brings necessarily fulfillment in life.
Right.
And a value of life. And so, I love this theme that to rethink, how we face those challenges, to rethink what does it mean to persevere and to survive against the odds and against those things that are challenging for us.
Yeah. And, I love that other quote that we have here from the Comfort Crisis where he says, "We are so afraid of discomfort that we avoid any situation that challenges us to grow and evolve." Anyway, just to reiterate a lot of what we've been saying, like our culture now runs from discomfort and runs toward comfort, even though that may not be the best thing for us. We need to exercise the muscle of enduring.
Right.
So, you've kind of inspired me on this book. I'll be honest. Most books you recommend, I tend to read them, and I think vice versa. I tend to recommend books, and you end up reading them. I have not read that book, Endurance, yet, but. Yeah, you've kind of inspired me to read it.
Right. It's actually it's a slow read in some ways because it's just in a nitty gritty of some of the daily life and challenges they faced. And there's from the book, there's a quote, and this is actually a good one. It talks about exactly what we're talking about here, and that is when you go out of your comfort zone beyond where you've been before. I like that. Getting out of your comfort zone, going way beyond where you've ever been before. He says, doubt is inevitable. Like you're going to doubt.
Of course.
You'll doubt what you're doing. You'll doubt this is the way forward. You'll doubt yourself. But then he adds this, but you invariably find new strength and courage and a way before or way forward. And I think that's really cool. Like pushing ourselves out of our comfort zones, being willing to stick with a job, stick with a relationship, to stick with a friendship, to stick with it in the midst of the challenges, and inevitably in that moment we'll find courage and we're going to find a way forward. There's something about crisis, there's something about challenge that clarifies our thinking instead of numbing our senses with all the things that we do to avoid being uncomfortable in life. Anyway, I love that.
Yeah, it's incredible. I think. I love this is a little. I wanted to say this earlier when we were talking about endurance when they left England in was it 1914?
1914. Yeah,
they left England. Obviously they had to recruit the men for this thing, and so I wanted to bring this up, even though it's a little bit sideways of what we're talking about right now. But it talks about the kind of men who signed up for this trip, and so they posted an ad. And, if this was in 2024, you would have seen this little ad on Facebook and you would have clicked on it and you would have signed up to be on the boat.
That's right.
But in 1914, it was probably in the newspaper or probably a little bulletin outside the saloon or wherever it was. But the ad read this: men wanted for hazardous journey, small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger, safe return doubtful, honor and recognition in event of success.
That's right.
Like, who's raising their hand for that?
That's right. But actually, it was inspiring.
Right.
Like, actually, they when you read the story, there were a lot of people who signed up for it because there's a sense in which we're wired for adventure. Like, we're wired for the unknown, for the challenge, and that's what I said at the very beginning. Like, being made in God's image is not to be lazy. It's not to avoid hardship. It's not to avoid adventure. But being made in the image of God, there's something adventurous about us in our spirit. Like, we love to have adventure. We long for adventure. We long for something unique that tests us, that challenges us. Why in the world do people sign up for a race, a 5K, 10K, half marathon, marathon? There's something about it that tests us. Why do people sign up for things that will challenge their skills? Because that's exactly what we were made for. And so that ad, you're right. Like, it was not a glamorous ad of sign up for this and you might die. And yet there were people who signed up and said, let's do this. That's what we want to do.
Yeah. They didn't necessarily sign up for 18 months of killing penguins and cutting off feet from frostbite, but they were warned up front. Hazardous journey, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger. They were warned, and they still signed up for it. And I wonder if we warned people of that today, how many people would raise their hand.
That's right. It would be a challenge.
And sign up for that.
We'll sign up for a comfortable vacation.
Right. I mean, one of the quotes you pulled from that book was, difficulties are just things to overcome.
That's right.
Like, in the simple, that sounds so simple that it's actually profound and inspiring.
Right.
Difficulties are just things to overcome.
Right.
And I think about that. This is the smallest, dumbest example, but I do this weekly exercise class that you know about. But I in this class, it's hard. You're sweating a lot. It's challenging. It's difficult. And I don't necessarily think in there, I should endure.
Right.
But I will say this, and I've told you this privately, so you can attest that I'm telling the truth.
Right.
About halfway through this class, almost every week, I tell myself in my brain, you can do hard things.
Right.
Haven't I said that to you?
Yeah.
And I push through for the rest of the class. And that's a way of enduring difficulties. Now, I know that's a silly workout. I go to a little workout and it's hard. That people endure much harder things than that. I'm just making the illustration that it's just a difficulty to overcome.
Right.
And mentally, we're capable of a lot more than we think.
Yeah. Hey, so as we land this plane here on this podcast, I'm thinking for those who are listening, maybe they're going through something right now where a choice needs to be made that, I'm going to stick with it.
Yeah.
And it's hard, but it'll be better for me. Now, not every situation's like that, but many, if not almost most of them, we're looking for an escape. We're looking for an exit door that we can walk out of. But there's something amazing about finishing what's in front of us, of finishing that race, of finishing the job, of sticking with it, of waiting in that place, in that space where we need to be. I would have two challenges for everybody. And that is, number one, start reading books, historical biographies of people who just rose to an occasion. Like, I think of an Ernest Shackleton. I think of a guy like Winston Churchill, who was the unexpected leader who really led the day during World War II. Like, he was not, nobody would have said he's going to be the guy, but that he rose to the occasion instead of giving up. And so read books on this because it is inspiring. Find a book that you can read, like The Comfort Crisis, like the book Endurance, other historical biographies about a time when people survived. In fact, this inspired me to look at another book about a lady who was a pioneer and all that she went through back in the early days of this country, pioneering West. We find it inspirational. So I would challenge folks to read. But I would also say this, that I've lived long enough. I've got quite a few decades behind me. And I'll be honest, at this point, I wish I would have done many more hard things. I feel like I've done a lot of hard things. And I've gone to hard places, and I've tackled hard things, and I've signed up for hard things. But I find now, I wish I would have lived much more of an adventurous life instead of playing it safe all the time. I wish I would have, endured a little bit more in certain settings. And so I would encourage people, just like wherever they are, whatever stage of life, sign up for those things. Sign up for something that will challenge us, or stick with it. Make a commitment that's hard. Choose not to always give into that which is comfortable or an escape or whatever, because we learn so much from it. And at the end of life, you can't go back and undo it or redo it.
Yeah.
And so I just think, like, embracing that kind of life, giving myself as a 21-year-old to doing something of significance, lifelong significance, or 41 years old, or raising our kids that way, helping them see the value in doing big things that maybe others don't notice, but big things as it relates to just human fortitude.
That's good. That's really good. And I think it's just a good reminder too that, like, in the journey of life, we always talk about life as a journey. There's peaks and valleys in any journey.
Oh, yeah.
And so if you find yourself in the valley right now, you shouldn't be shocked by that.
Right.
Valleys are part of the journey.
Right.
And if you're on the mountaintop, we weren't made to stay at the mountaintop.
Right.
The air is thin. The sun is hot. It's hard to stay on the mountaintop.
Right.
You're going to find yourself in a valley eventually. And
Yep.
when you do, and if you are right now, I think it's helpful to remember, this is part of it.
Right.
Every journey has a valley.
Right.
And I just happen to be in it right now.
Right.
And so I think the principle would be, you may need to slow down in the valley because you might be trudging through some thick mud,
Right.
but keep moving.
Right.
There is the old principle that an object in motion stays in motion.
That's right.
So keep moving.
Right.
Even if it's slower than you want to go,
Right.
you'll eventually emerge from the valley.
Yep. Good words, man. All right. Endurance. Not just a good read, but also a good way to live. And we're going to wrap this up.
Let's do it.
All right.
It's been great.
This is the podcast, Think Global. And again, the world is our home, and strangers become friends, and friends become family. Folks, we appreciate you listening. Thanks a lot. Send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Thoughts on podcasts in the future. Until March, all the best.